Okay. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wa bihi nasta'in wa ala umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'du. Okay. For the first honorable to lecture Miss Happy Febrina. Hopefully you always in good health, and may Allah heal your disease. So today, let's thanks to God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because His mercy and blessing until we can live in this world. And salawat and salam let's send to our Prophet, our messenger, is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, my name is Aditya Yuriangga. For this moment, allow me please to answer the midterm examination of econometrics. Hopefully, I can answer it correctly and with good explanation. Okay, let's going to the question. This is the first question is the A question is explain the purpose of using a linear regression model, and the B is what is the difference between simple linear regression and multiple linear regression. So the C is what is the difference between linear regression analysis and linear correlation analysis, and D explain the position of the term error in a linear regression model. So let me to answer it. The first is A. The question A is, as we know, linear regression is a type of forecasting or predictive analysis that is often used on quantitative scale data, or we can say interval or ratio. So the purpose of linear regression analysis is to find out how much influence some independent variables have on the dependent variables, and can also predict the value of the dependent variable if all the independent variables have now values. So the question B is, what is the difference between simple linear regression and multiple linear regression? This is the difference. The first is simple linear regression analysis is a regression analysis that only involves two variables, namely one dependent variable or dependent variables and one independent or independent variable. In simple regression analysis, the relationship between variables is linear, where changes in variable x will be followed by changes in variable y on a regular basis. In addition, simple linear regression analysis aims to forecast or predict y values. So a good simple linear regression model must meet the assumption of exigency, linearity, autocorrelation, and error variance. So, the meaning of multiple linear regression analysis is a regression analysis that involves more than two variables, namely one dependent variable on dependent variable and more than one is independent variable. This is called multiple linear because some of these independent variable will have an effect on the dependent variable. Multiple linear regression analysis aims to determine which independent variable has the most influence or has the strongest relationship with the dependent variable. In addition, this method is also used to test the dependency characteristic hypothesis. So, for the for the question C in the number one is, what is the difference between linear regression analysis and linear correlation analysis? This is the difference of both of them. The first is linear correlation analysis is a statistical analysis that aims to see whether there is a relationship between two or more variables. In correlation analysis, we don't need a theory, so we can correlate any variables. In the correlation analysis, the position between the variable is equal, meaning that there are no variables that influence or are influenced. For example, is there a correlation between height and level of loyalty in men? So, the mean of linear regression analysis is a statistical analysis that aims to see whether there is a causal relationship between two or more variables. In the regression analysis, the position between variables is not equal. There will be variables that affect on variables that are affected. The variable which is theorized to affect other variables is called the independent variable, or we can see IV. Meanwhile, the variable which is influenced by other variable is called the dependent variable, or we can say is DV. So the question D is expand the position of the term error in linear regression model. The answer is the error term is the difference between the expected price at a particular time and the price that was actually observed. In the instance where the price is exactly what was anticipated at a particular time, the price will fall on the trend line and the error term will be zero. This is the mean of the error. So let's we move to the question two is a company manager wants to know how the effect of the number of employee working hour on the company's production level. For this session, company managers record data on the number of employees working hour for 12 days along with the amount of production. The results of the manager's notes are presented as follows. This is working hour, day working hour, and production. So let's we move to the question. The question A for the number two is if we want to use a linear regression model to answer the objective of the study, which variable is the independent variable or X and the dependent variable or Y. So as we know, the independent variable is the cause. Its its mean its value is independent of other variable in your study or in our study. So the dependent variable is the effect. Its value depends on changes in the independent variable. The answer is the independent variable is working hour or the X and dependent variable is production or Y. So we are going to the question B. Determine the estimation regression equation with the following steps. This is my calculation in Excel. So we move. This is the result for x s x y equal is to 2612 divided 11. The equal is 237.45, and the double s and double x or SSXX equal 700 552 divide 12 divide 11 equal is 68.36. So the result of slope is equal to 237.45 divide 68.36. The result or equal is 3.47. So the BO equal to Y bar and minus B1 multiply X bar. So the result is 302.67 minus 3.47 multiply 178 is the result is minus 314.99. This the result of Y bar is from our previous from my previous calculation, and so the X bar too. The calculation is from previous calculation. So let's we move. And the C is, let me to read the question. Does the number of working hours have a significant effect on the increase in production? Use the 5% significant level hint test the hypothesis whether the slope obtained in the part B is significantly different from 0 or not. So this is the question. HO or B1 equal to 0, it means no linear relationship. So the H1 slope is not equal 0, it means there is a linear relationship. So SB1 equal to S divided root of squared SSXX equal 7.91 divided 8.26. The result is 0.97. So the is equal B1 divided SB1. So the result is 3.47 divided 0.97. The result is 3.62. So I have searched in the table is alpha divided 2, the equal is I'm sorry, alpha divided 2, the equal 0.05 divided 2. 0.05 is from the 5%. So the result is 0.025. And the DF is equal 12 minus 2. The result is 10. So the result is minus 2.28. This is from the T table. And the 2.28 is the mean is the critical region. Because of that, we reject the H0 H0 at uh, at alpha 5%. So we can conclude that the slope is significantly different from 0. So this is, we move to the last question is number 3. The following table presents the results of the calculation of multiple linear regression related to the factors that affect the national gross domestic product. So this is the description: GDP, GEE, TK, INF, AXP, and SBI. So the question of A is state which variable are independent variable and which are dependent variable. This is my answer. The independent variable X is GEI, TQ, INF, EXP, and SBI. So the dependent variable, or we can say the Y, is GDP. So for the number B is the question number B. Give a research question formulation that you want to try to answer in the case above. So this is my answer. I answer it by this. The first is descriptive question, and secondly is explanatory question, and the thirdly explanatory question. So the first is, what are the factors that affect GDP? The answer is the factors that affect GDP are GEI, TQ, INF, EXP, and SBI. So the question for explanatory questions is, how do inflation rate influence GDP? The answer is the inflation rate has an effect against GDP growth, depressing the past inflation. Inflation growth becomes important for increased GDP growth in a certain period. Economic welfare can be done in Indonesia through growth GDP as an indicator against economic welfare in a country. So for the explorative questions is how the influence of the inflation rate on GDP in advancing the country. The answer is basically not all inflation has a negative impact on the economy, especially if uh, if mild inflation occurs, namely inflation below 10%. Even mild inflation can encourage economic growth. This is because inflation is able to give enthusiasm for entrepreneurs to further increase their production. Entrepreneurs eager to expand production because the price increases. That accurate entrepreneurs get more profit. In addition, increased production gave another positive impact, namely the availability of new jobs. So we are going to question C. What is the resulting coefficient of determination? Explain the meaning. Coefficient of determination is R squared uh, equal to 0.88 or it's mean 88%. So we can conclude that 88% is close to 1, which means that the X and Y relationship is very accurate. So for the number D is do the independent variable just simultaneously have a real significant effect on the dependent variable? Use the result of the f-test with a significant level of 0.05. This is the df. The first is numerator. Yes, I get it 5 and the denominator is 90, 19. And the f table at 0.05 level significant is the equal to 2.74 and the f hit is 61.07 because f hit bigger than f table, or we can say that 61.07 bigger than 2.74. So we can conclude that H0 is rejected and H1 is accepted, which means the model is significant. So for the last question is which variables have a significant effect on the dependent variable, particularly interpret the estimate coefficient of each of these independent variables. Use the results of the test with a significant level of 0.05. So the GEI is the variable which is significant effect on the dependent variable. Mean GEI has a positive effect on GDP. So every addition of one GEE will increase GDP by 4.25, and TQ has a positive effect on GDP. So every addition of one TQ will increase GDP by 2.23. So I and F has a negative effect on GDP. So every addition of one E and F will reduce GDP by 1.559. So the EXP has a positive effect on GDP. So every addition of one EXP will increase GDP by 1.12. So SBI has a negative effect on GDP. So every addition of one SBI will increase GDP by 0.025. Okay, thank you. Maybe until enough here my answer of midterm examination of econometrics. Hopefully it's enough that I said to you all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.